All right, so now we're in chapter 6, the first part here. And Jesus is in his own hometown of Nazareth, and he's preaching and teaching there, and he's also being rejected. The people there just can't see him as the man he's become, as the prophet and the Son of Man, the Son of God, who he is. They only see this little boy, the son of the carpenter, and they rejecting his message. Jesus says that a prophet is not without honor except in his own hometown and among his own relatives and his own household. Have you ever felt that way before? Have you ever been rejected? Think about perhaps before and after you were saved. Maybe you had friends who knew you a certain way before you were saved, and they're good friends, and then you came to know Christ, or maybe you'd known Christ for a while and to some degree, but you hadn't came to him with that humble, repentant heart for him to come into your life and change you into a different person. And now these friends don't recognize you anymore. Perhaps they doubt your testimony. They wonder if you're for real. And so they just reject you. And so sometimes it's hard to be around people that have known you in the past and hear the message that you have today. But just know that God's grace is sufficient. Your past is the past, and that's part of your testimony. We can talk about that change and recognize that element of our past and use it as a powerful testimony for what God has done in our lives and through us. The other thing to take away in this passage is that Jesus eventually sends out the disciples, and he doesn't send them out alone. He sends them out in pairs. And so that's an important thing to remember, especially in this time of social distancing, that we as a church, we're never meant to be isolated. And so even though you may be rejected by your old friends or rejected by the people around you today, we are not meant to go through this walk alone. Jesus sent them out in pairs because there's strength in numbers. And it's important for you to find a man or a woman who's a Christian, a brother or sister in Christ, that can walk along with you and partner with you, not only in the gospel ministry, but also just in life, and be able to share life together, to confess to one another, hold each other accountable, that sort of thing. So, very important element that I think we're all missing right now in this time of social distancing. But thank the Lord that we have plenty of ways of technology, just like we're doing here online, to be able to stay in connection with each other. So let's put those to good use. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that today is Good Friday. And as we anticipate Easter Sunday here in a couple days, it's interesting that we call this day Good Friday. Why? Well, it's because the only good person to ever live was hung on the cross today. It was Good Friday because not only is that good person hanging on the cross, but think about that good and gracious sacrifice that God made for our behalf. It's the ultimate act of good. But it's also been described as Black Friday. I'm not talking about the day after Thanksgiving, but the darkest Friday ever, when Jesus Christ, God's own Son, took the wrath of God for our sin on that cross of Calvary. Thank the Lord that during this very dark time, it didn't stay that way, right? Sunday was coming. This would have been a time of depression, a time of wondering what just happened. How did this happen? The disciples would have been wondering if Jesus really was who he said he was, and they were wondering what would happen to them, what would happen next. And so over the next day or so, just really feel that with them. Great time of darkness, but again, that light was coming. Sunday's coming, and we'll be able to celebrate here Easter together in just 2 days. But it's important to recognize the darkness and the humiliation and the great sacrifice that he made on the cross. And in doing so, it makes that glorious resurrection, conquering the grave, all the more sweet. God bless you. Hope you have a good day, and I'll see you tomorrow.